Recording. All right. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Paula Jansen. I'm with Leisure Town Life, and we are here with Ken Stockton, one of our LTHA board candidates. And if some of you have joined us earlier in the week with Eva and Kathy, we're continuing the topic of promise versus process and how to manage the expectations of the voting community. So Ken is going to be able to impart a little bit of his thoughts and understanding of what that looks like. And it will be a little bit different from Kathy and Eva, not too much, but being that Ken has served on the board in the past, he has a little bit of a different experience. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, and then we're going to bring up some questions about, what are his most important issues that he feels the board should be addressing, and what his process is in introducing that to the new board. So everyone, thank you for being here. Ken, so the topic basically is promise to process. The whole point in us bringing this up is because a lot of the community may not know what happens. What is the journey of a candidate once they do get elected? And, what does it look like? Is it immediate? Do you go right into a meeting? How do you start presenting and implementing some of your ideas and some of the issues that you feel are important that you had promised your community you would address? And maybe just take a few minutes and explain to us what that looks like. Ken, I think you're frozen on us. Ken is frozen. We'll give it a second. He may need to reboot. And it looks like he's gone. So we're going to wait for him to come back in. Sorry about that, folks. But it looks like he was just booted off for whatever reason. He may be having some internet issues. Bear with us 1 second, please. So anyway, until Ken does rejoin us, if he doesn't, we may have to stop the meeting and then continue a little bit later. But yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe he can call in. But we've had some good response regarding this topic. The topic is, one that, we just make assumptions of what happens, and whether it's national politics or regional politics or an HOA election, it's good to know what happens. And I think just to recap on what Kathy and Eva were discussing last week, it's not a case of just going in and laying your papers on the table and saying this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. It really is a concerted effort to make sure that they do come to a consensus. There might be people who don't agree with what they're bringing to the table. Pre-existing board members, they've had time together, they have history together, and it's no different than being the new kid in the class in a new school. You know, you have to just start building those relationships and also learning from them. I think one of the key points that Eva and Kathy brought up a couple nights ago was both of them stressed that they are interested in learning from the existing board, as well as bringing in their own ideas. You know, it's a mutual benefit, you know, all around. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot to consider in that. Every one of these new candidates have amazing ideas and options to, you know, address the immediate issues of the community, as well as, you know, taking on some new ideas. You know, the existing board right now recently put out an email with a wonderful plan overview of their vision for Leisure Town coming up, you know, including pickleball and, you know, ideas for landscaping that would be a little bit more sustainable than what we have now, water, savings on water usage, and just overall reinforcement, some solar ideas that we saw come up. So I want to applaud them for that. That would be an exciting foundation for any new candidate to be able to walk into. I have not been able to reconnect with Ken. It looks like he may or may not be coming back to us at this point. But let's chat a little bit more. You didn't come here to see me, but it looks like I am who you have for the moment. Next week, just to give you an idea, we have originally had scheduled 2 events with the pair, Eva and Kathy, and then Ken to follow. And we decided that being it's our last week with election events, I'm sure most of you are happy to see that happen. We decided to have one event on Tuesday night with all 3 candidates and allow them to just give one final statement and you know, take a little bit more time. It's probably going to be about 45 minutes instead of 30, but it'll give you an opportunity to hear just some final closing remarks before they go into election and the ballots get tallied. It's also a good opportunity for you to actually submit any questions that haven't been addressed between now and then. If you haven't already voted and you still are looking at what the candidates, there he is, what the candidates have to say, then we, you know, would encourage you to still send in your questions. Send them directly to me. You can pop them in the chat box right now. But yeah, there's still time. There's probably a lot more that you would like to learn. So welcome back, Ken. Fantastic.
I don't know. I thought I was going to have to reboot our modem. I haven't had to do that in a long time, but then it connected, so it was.
All right. Well, thanks. Thank you for everybody for being patient. Ken is back. So Ken, let me just ask the question again. You know, the process versus the promise versus process. What does that look like once you're elected? And maybe take it just a few minutes to talk about that, and then we'll go into some other questions.
So at the meeting on November 16th, that's our annual meeting, as it's called, for the association. The votes will be being tabulated as the board typically talks about the past year and what they've done and accomplished and so on and so forth. So and the voting is announced, the numbers, those elected move to the front of the room at the table. Those not elected move to somewhere else in the room or wherever they'd like to. What happens directly after that is an officer process, an officer selection process. And it can go a few different ways. It usually happens pretty fast. There's a motion for appointments. There's either a second or not a second, and there's a vote. And so typically I would think that president would be dealt with first, and then the first vice president second, secretary, treasurer, and secretary. I don't know. The first time I was on the board, it was kind of exciting, really exciting, but we did it in a closed meeting. It either wasn't allowed then and we did it, or we didn't, or maybe it was changed. Now it's an open meeting in front of everybody that's in attendance. And so, and then, so we decide, by vote, who takes the positions. And then we go into some format of an agenda that will be announced. And I'm guessing it won't have a whole bunch of things on it, given that they've already had the annual meeting and the voting results. And so probably the next meeting will be announced in January, the date, and that will pretty much be it. Typically at this meeting, there's not a lot of things that are discussed as far as new or old or, motions made, because none of that stuff would be on any agenda. And an agenda needs to be posted 4 days in advance of the meeting per Davis Sterling. So, so that's what happens. Now, I think you wanted me to maybe talk about, well, let me tell you, let you tell me what you want me to talk about next if I didn't cover everything.
Well, thank you. You did in a nutshell. I do have a couple, just one question to clarify on one of the points you made. So are you saying that once you're elected in and the meeting commences, are you saying that all positions are up for grabs? It's reorganized at that point to include the president, vice president?
That's what's happened in the past, and my understanding is that's what will happen then. The present president is not up for re-election, but that position of officer, not director, that's an officer, will be up, as will the other four.
Interesting.
The
And
second year I was on the board, we really were working in, I'm just going to say it, great harmony. We got along really well. We didn't always vote 5-0, but we got along and we worked things out. And everybody had a desire to just do the same thing because, they kind of had their boots on the ground, and that's what we did. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, well, that just makes it a lot more interesting, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it gets really, frankly, it gets kind of hairy for a little bit. Yeah, it does. It does, because, there's typically going to be some majority and minority, maybe not, but there typically will be. And so, so yeah, it'll get exciting there for a minute.
Now,
Some of us might run up to the table and not walk.
So when a new board is put into place or a new board member, does anything else change or shift with that? With committees or any other appointees, anything that you can think of, or is it just really related to the 5?
Well, I would say that it can shift for sure. I mean, there's loyalties on the pre-existing people that are on the committees, the board, and everything else. And some people can't look beyond that loyalty and even try to work with somebody else. And it's always their prerogative to resign or continue. And I don't know that those things would happen right away, but it wouldn't surprise me if they actually did. Yeah. So, and I'm not taking for granted I'm elected. I think I might have sounded like that a minute ago. I'm actually fine either way. I'll only cry a little bit if I don't get elected. And, but yeah, there's some loyalties that are established, and that's just the reality of this. It's really politics, right? So
It is. Well, thank you very much. So the question that came in this morning basically is one of our community members would like to know what you believe are the most important issues that the board should address, and where do you stand on those issues? So you
okay.
have open forum for about 15 minutes right now.
Oh, that's a long time. So I'm thinking that the bylaws are right at the top of the list. They've been on the table and under the table and over the table since I want to say June, but it might have been before that. And some controversy, a group that agreed on one thing and maybe a group or two that agreed on something else. And so they got shelved. The votes have never been opened. They've been canceled being opened, I think 4 times now. with the last time, I think the present board decided just let the new board do it because we're close enough to an election where it made sense to let the people that are going to have to, have to put these things into practice and process, let them work them out. And so I'm just going to be really open about my position on the bylaws, the way they were handled and the way they were put out. To me, they were tainted as tainted could be. The public, the community was not informed anything close to what we could have informed them. There were talks about town halls. I think there was one town hall after the petition was submitted. There was no town halls prior to that. There was not a lot of email blasting, and I know that our manager left and our president left, but nothing happened before that and nothing happened after that. And so the community, even those who may not even have been highly concerned about bylaws, because frankly, a lot of people brush over stuff and they pick out something that might come to their mind because they have that or whatever. They're a swimmer, so they want to know about the pool. And so, so I lost my train of thought a little bit, but I think that, they were not handled. I mean, the transparency that we've talked about, and actually the board that's in place right now is starting to talk about it. Their motivation is, it is what it is, but the transparency would have made those bylaws more understandable. It would have not created a feeling of mistrust for some in the community, and it wouldn't have initiated over 200 people signing a petition to stop them. So my goal would be this. First of all, I'm gonna, with the board approval, a majority, go to our manager and say, what can we do? We've had a vote, votes have been cast. They've been casted by proxy and other things that some of us knew nothing about until they were exposed. So what I would like to do, honestly, if it's possible, is to redo them and revote them. And if that's not possible because it's went out to the people and they voted, then we'll just have to count the votes and go from there. But if it's at all possible and legal, and again, the community supports it, I don't know how we get that out to the community, some of these polls that others are talking about and stuff like that. But I think we need to rework them. And during this process of me being part of that petition, one of the thoughts I had, and my thoughts don't always work, but sometimes they're actually decent, is, we have 5 boroughs in Leisure Town. We have Garden Homes 1, Garden Homes 2, Hampton Park, the Circles, and Golf Course Estates. So what if we were to take those 5 areas and per percentage of residents, which would favor the Circles drastically, ask for a few people to be on a committee? And not necessarily the policy and procedure, although it would be great to have some of those people that have been on that committee participate. But why not have people from every borough commenting? Because then you get kind of and we would ask them to go back to their community in some way and have their own community meetings. Is this good? Is this bad? What do you like? And it's going to be a process again, but it was a huge process this first time and it led us nowhere. And so that's my opinion on the bylaws. And the other one to look at is our finances, which is directly related to our employees, our spending, and our here I go, our escaping me, reserve study, sorry, our reserve study. So we need to look at the reserve study. We need to understand the reserve study, and we need to make a real strong effort to help our community understand it. And to me, the easiest way would be to have some town halls in the town hall on a Saturday and have some people, and if I'm on the board, I would not hesitate to be one of them, give some kind of instruction on the that reserve study and how it works. I'm certain that our manager has quite a bit of knowledge in that area. And so I think if our people understood the reserve study and how it works, that would be beneficial for them to understand why they see some money spent at times that they don't understand because they've never heard about that item. I never knew that was bad, and now we're spending a lot of money to fix it. How did that come about, you know? So that one, and then finances, how are we handling our contracts mostly? And I'm a landscape contract guy, so I wrote the landscape contracts when I was on the board before with help from others, Vicky Bell and a few other people, and wrote the job descriptions for our 2 maintenance men, because that's what I did for the sheriff's office. And so I think all those need to be looked at. It's obviously not going to happen overnight, but that's why we're in for 2 years. So that's it for now.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the your comment about reviewing the contracts? Is that something that typically should be done on a regular basis as an audit process with the board? Or what is the actual reason for you to want to review the contracts? Is that for financial purposes or?
Yeah, I want to see how specific they are. I would want to see how specific they are as far as mowing. Our prior contracts had a mowing frequency during the winter was less than during the summer, obviously. Tree trimming was up to 8 feet off the ground, but no further. So that was in the landscape contract. We didn't have to go to the landscape contractor or a tree surgeon and say, we need this trimmed. If it was either 8 or 10 feet off the ground. If it was 10 feet off the ground, we could expect our landscape contractor to take care of it. And if he didn't, then we would meet. And actually, I think that one of the better times we had is we were having monthly meetings with the landscape contractor, either the owner, the foreman, or whoever the company put. And it would be maybe the manager and whoever on the board was either versed in that subject, or, you know, or if the president wanted to do it, she would or he would do that. So yeah, so, you know, landscaping takes up a lot of money, and we've approved a lot of $850 repair bills in the last 3 or 4 months that I've seen. And they seem to be, now I don't know because I'm not there, but they seem to be done and then billed and then paid. So, and if it's a leak on a live line, that can certainly be understood. But I would really like it that somebody said it was a 2-inch pipe. It was steel, it was galvanized, it was plastic, it was 100 years old. We don't get any detail whatsoever. We get 9 leaks, 7,000 some odd dollars. And I think the community, vast majority of them would like to know more about where that money's going more specifically. And even the 2 green strips, I think there was 2 green strips according to our reserve study that were updated about a year ago, maybe almost 2 years ago now. I have no idea what updated meant. I mean, you've got a garden, anybody that's done landscaping knows when you say updated, it could go from, you know, and so did we fix drainage? Did we fix sprinklers? Did we change heads? Did we level ground? Did we reseed? Things like that. Yeah. So.
What other issues?
Other issues? Well, I talked about Davis Sterling adhering to the Davis Sterling law. Kathy Marcia is researching it probably at this minute. I would hope she's listening to me like I listen to her, but maybe she's not. But she's doing a lot of research. She digs in. I appreciate that to death. I did a lot of that in my prior time. Davis Sterling is our roadmap to legality. It really is. And it's so easy to get off track. You don't do it with malice. It happens innocently. It happens with a conversation of 2 directors, and then the one director goes to the third one and shares the information, and then you got a majority that's thinking the same way or not. And so we're not supposed to meet like that. We're supposed to meet either in closed session or an open meeting where our members know what we're doing. And it's been mentioned many times, there's only 6 subjects that can legally be discussed in closed session. And I would suggest to anybody elected to have those 6 subjects sitting right in front of them on the table for the first closed session. Because if you care about that, you're going to have to you're going to probably have a time where you question not only somebody else, but even what you did when you went home, because you said, oh, I might have stepped off into that I didn't even want to. And I've seen it happen, 3.5 years. I was accused of doing it more than once. And yeah, but it's something you have to do, and it can be done. Some people say you can't do that. You can't do everything in closed session. I completely disagree. Group emails between directors are not good process. They're not illegal, but they can lead quickly to something that's illegal. We have a manager for a reason. If a director needs to express something to the other directors, a better way to do it is to express it to the manager and ask that manager to put the information out and not even possibly say who it's from. So you put the idea out, but it's not you selling your opinion. So I'm pretty passionate about most of this stuff. So.
I was muted. I said we can see that, and thank you for being passionate. I think all of you are.
Yeah, we are.
There's a lot of work that has gone into the community may not know this, but we'll talk about that more next week in our final wrap up. But there's been so much work that goes in to campaigning and the election, and I just applaud all of the new candidates as well as the incumbents. Anybody who's running for re-election or new campaigns really need to be applauded. It's all consuming, and many people may not understand that. In the few minutes we have left, just real quick, you brought up some really good points, which really prompted some more questions from me. But you said 6 subjects are legally allowed to be discussed in the closed session. What are those six subjects?
Well, I don't have them written down in front of me.
Okay.
So
I wasn't trying to catch you on something.
No, it's fine. I don't mind that, because it's good to have your cheat sheet on that anyway, because it is 6 different things. And, some of them are member, contracts for payment. If somebody's fallen back, it's meetings to negotiate a contract, working out deals like that. And there's some others, and they're relatively simple, but I'll guarantee that I'll have them written down. And I'll have them written down even if I'm not elected, because it's good to have people watching, I believe, even if they're watching me. So, yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much, Ken. I know, there's been a lot of work that have gone into, the whole election process. And one of the things that all of the candidates have insisted on is being as transparent and available to all of you community members as much as possible. So Leisure Town Life has made that a possibility by creating these live events, by having web pages, by having multiple ways that you can communicate with the candidates and learn more about them so you can make an informed decision. So as I mentioned before, next week, Tuesday, will be our final live event with this election period. It's going to be a little bit longer, about 45 minutes. We're going to have 3 of the new candidates running that will be live, and they'll have closing statements. I will have some closing statements just to address the community and kind of a wrap up of the last 8 weeks, if you can imagine that we've been working together on this election process.
Can I talk about something that's very paramount? And I actually requested this board look at it in January, and here we are in November.
Sure.
It only take anybody that's ever observed or been to our city council meetings, they have 2 open forums. They have one open forum that's for anything not on the agenda. So that's, I'm going to call that your general open forum. Somebody might get up and say the cart path needs to be trimmed back, whatever that is. So for that open forum, I would encourage, and again, it's always a majority rules, but I would encourage the board to take notes during open forum and to respond when it's appropriate right then. And if it's not appropriate right then respond at the next meeting, certainly. I think every open forum question should be responded to. There should never be a person go up there and then go back home and go, well, they really didn't even listen to me because they were looking at their paperwork or whatever. We did that when I was on the board. We took notes, and a few of us at different times would announce what they were and then ask who wanted to deal with that one. The other one was, the other open forum is for business. So on our agenda, there's new and old business. So every time either a new or old business item gets introduced, the city council has an open forum right then, where the people can come up to the microphone and ask specifics about that. We're remodeling the bathroom. Why is it that much money? My bathroom at home only costs this much money. And then hopefully somebody sitting up there is overseeing that project, either the manager or maybe even one of the board members is closely connected with it, and we can answer those questions. And so I asked that in January. I never received a reply or an answer, and I asked it for the next 2 months too. One other thing is, when we were suffering our rash of break-ins in Leisure Town, and we'll have them again because criminals talk, I asked for the board to look into license plate identification cameras at the intersection of Sequoia and Leisure Town Road, and at the intersection of Nut Tree and Yellowstone. And I have no idea what they would cost. So it might have been cost prohibitive. It might have been that there's a grant. I mean, there's grants for those things all over the place, I believe. And so it was never, ever addressed. And I asked that one 3 months in a row too. Those things I would like to at least look at and see what the cameras might cost. And then I don't think adding the two open forums should be a big deal. It's going to make the meeting a little bit longer, but it'll make it so much more transparent and open. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. And thank you, Leisure Town, for joining us this evening, and for all of your support through the last 8 weeks, and just really participating and being active with this campaign process. We appreciate you greatly, and you are the best part of our community, no question. Have a good night, everyone.
I'd like to thank you too.
Oh, thank
it's
you.
Right at the top. It's right at the top of my piece of paper. And thank the members that signed on and showed up. You know,
that's it. That's it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ken. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Bye.